Okay, it's the morning briefing from the Celtic Way, and we're still a little bit down, aren't we? It's been such a good start to the season, but Tuesday night was a bit of a disappointment. Joe, we've not had your thoughts yet, so you can take the floor and let us know what you made of that game.
Only just about ready to talk about it. I think it was sobering is the word which has been said all over the media, all over social media, and I think that's fair. A sore one. I've said this a few times since Tuesday night. I don't think there was anything wrong with getting into the game confident. Everything that Celtic have shown so far this season, the performances have been incredible at home. Domestically, home and away. But it's that big step up again, and an unwanted record for Brendan Rodgers, another 7 goals shipped. The only manager to have done it more than once. This is the third. It was a 6-0 last year, and I don't know. It's tough to see how we stand up against some of the bigger clubs, but I suppose I've moved away from the abject disappointment to the position in the new league phase isn't as bad when you see it in black and white, and work it out for Celtic moving forward.
Yeah, 20th we're down to, guys. The days of us being second they seem a long time ago. They're only a couple of days ago, but they seem a long time ago. 20th now, although you would settle for 20th at the end of it all, wouldn't you? Of course. So still opportunities for the team. We'll discuss it a bit more today. I just want to kind of get a feeling of how we are all feeling, and obviously get plenty of your comments in as well. So how are you all feeling? Probably 40 odd hours on from the game. My maths is right. Let us know what you're thinking, how you're feeling about Celtic, how you're feeling about this weekend's game against Ross County. I'll be honest, I was more excited for Dortmund than I am for Ross County. It's not the most glamorous of fixtures, but it's an opportunity for the team to react in some sort of way. Ryan, how's things?
Yeah, without a doubt, it's a perfect opportunity to respond. And Cal McGregor was talking about that in his held back quotes yesterday that came out at 6 p.m. that are on the website. He's like, the only way we can put this right is by continuing to win games in other competitions, such as, well, in the Champions League, obviously, and in other competitions like domestically. It's your bread and butter at the end of the day. I've gotten over the result. I think it helped doing the ratings during the game.
How did you do that? Let us know exactly how you did it, because it'd be nice for me. Bit of interest. Screamed into pillow a few times.
I just had my player ratings head on, and I kind of got it all out in the player ratings. So by the time that they were out the next day, I didn't take it out on any. I think it was just as I think it was Cal McGregor that said it's a collective. No, it was Brendan Rodgers. I think they said that it's a collective. So it was everybody on the pitch. There was no player that get pass marks on Tuesday. The highest player get 5 out of 10, and even then, looking back on that, I'd have probably given him a 4 because I thought Schmeichel was culpable for a couple of the goals on the night. Looking back on it, and I gave Bailly a 4 because he looked promising. He looked bright when he came on, and he wanted to take his opportunity. Maybe a potential start in the running for him at Ross County at the weekend, especially with Greg Taylor's current situation. He might miss out in the game due to being taken off at half time. He was taken off at half time against St Johnstone at McDermott Park, so maybe a perfect opportunity for him. I'm over it. 7-1's a sobering result, as everybody talks about, but you've got to look forward. You've got to also understand and remember that it's been a phenomenal start to the season, apart from this 7-1 win. And I know a lot of people won't want to hear that, and they'll focus on the current game or the game that's just passed, the fact that Celtic have been hammered by Borussia Dortmund. In the grand scheme of things, we expected Dortmund to beat Celtic. It's just in the manner that they beat Celtic that people are annoyed about in the scoreline. I don't want it to derail Celtic's season. They still get 6 games in the Champions League. They're also in a really healthy spot in the Scottish Premiership. They're in a good place in the League Cup too. They're in the semi-finals playing against Aberdeen, who've just lost their best player for 4 months. So there are plenty of positives for Celtic at this moment in time. It's just it feels as if all the negatives have come home to roost after that 7-1 defeat, which is going to be the case, but I've already moved on. We move on to Sunday against Ross County, and let's put some more scoreboard pressure on our rivals, Aberdeen and Rangers, because they play later on. Another chance to go clear and put the pressure directly back on our title challengers.
Do they both play later on.
They both play later on. One plays at 2 or 3, and the other one plays at 8. Rangers play at 8 o'clock against St Johnstone.
On Sunday?
Yeah, because they have to play it because it's the international break after it. They have to fulfil the fixture.
3 o'clock or something, no?
It's the Great Scottish Run, I think, is in the city. So I think that's offset the kick-off, apparently.
What a shame.
Yeah, there was a bit of a kick up when that was announced about a month ago or so. But it's on Premier
let's spend
Sports.
no more time discussing Rangers then, because quite frankly, I don't really care. Results last night. I know you two are across all of this. I'm just going through them. Celtic-related results. So we had Aston Villa beat Bayern Munich. So Villa away is looking like a challenging game, although they may be top 8 confirmed by the time they play us, the way they're going. We also had Dinamo Zagreb, who took a bit of a thumping in their opening game. They got a 2-2 draw with Monaco. I think they were up in that game as well, a couple of goals. So that tells you that might be a tough game away to Zagreb. Listen, they're all tough games. Leipzig, interestingly, have not got a point yet. And their next game is against Liverpool. So there's a fair chance Leipzig go to Celtic Park with no points from 9. So that turns into a must-win for them. Don't know if that's good or bad for us. But yeah, that's interesting. We had Atalanta, winning 3-0 away to Shakhtar Donetsk. So that's looking like a tough game. Club Brugge beat Sturm Graz away from home. So there's quite a few teams we were playing, guys, that picked up big results. As I said, Joe, we're 20th now, so we'd settle for that at the end. But how are you feeling generally about our chances going forward with these fixtures?
Yeah, it's Christ, I sound like one of the players of the manager saying game by game at this point, isn't it? It has been game by game so far. You come off that first game, regardless of the opposition, you've won 5-1, and you feel so confident. You get absolutely humbled, and some, and it's real doom and gloom. It's hard to predict, like you say, about Leipzig. Are they going to come to Celtic and need something? Does that suit Celtic or not? I couldn't say. The Aston Villa one was the one that stood out for. But actually, at Atlanta, I watched a bit of that game, and they looked good. And given that's the next game, that's slightly concerning, and it's on the road as well. But the Aston Villa game was the one that stood out for me, especially given how Aston Villa kind of set themselves up. I know that a lot of Celtic fans at the moment are hurting because of the steadfastness which Brendan Rodgers, in terms of how he set up the team, how the team played openly and tried to attack Dortmund, and obviously, just on that point of Ian's, the stats for Aston Villa, I'm just looking at these this morning. XG at 0.25 compared to Bayern's 1.47, 33%, easy for me to say, percent possession. 3 goal attempts to Bayern's 16, 2 shots on goal to Bayern's 7, 1 shot off target to Bayern's 2, blocked shots 0 to Bayern's 7. So, and Villa win 1-0. Martinez is a brilliant performance between the sticks, and we've seen that in previous years with a Freya Forster backs to the wall performances. So Celtic, the fact that and Brendan Rodgers came out afterwards and said, we're not willing to change how we play. This is how we're going to play in Europe. We had the same under Ange Postecoglou. In the days since, I'm still kind of hurt and still feeling a little bit sorry for myself in terms of how Celtic performed on Tuesday. But one comparison which came to my mind was, and this isn't to criticise Brendan Rodgers directly, but we have heard Brendan Rodgers say after a Wednesday night game at McDiarmid Park or a Sunday at Ross County, when we scrape through these games in March, when the fixture catalogue is really heavy, that we had to show a different side to our game. And it's always in a positive light. Celtic had to dig in, they had to roll up their sleeves and show a different side to their game. Why can't we do that in Europe? Why do we need to attack the game in the same way that we do in Scotland, which clearly works? I agree with Ryan. I think that there's an argument to be made that the football that we've played so far domestically this season is the best that we've seen under Brendan Rodgers. And I don't mean, obviously the accolades of the Invincibles treble, the double treble, the 5 trophies under Ange Postecoglou. But in the here and now, the football was so entertaining domestically. I think it could be the best that we've seen. Why can't we play differently in Europe? Why do we need to attack the game and then be open or vulnerable to these 7-1s, these 7-0s, these 6-0s? I'd like to see a more resilient, like Aston Villa. What can we learn? As Ian said, that shows that you can play differently and maybe get a different result.
Yeah, I think resilience is an important word there, because we spoke about it yesterday. This habit we have of conceding one goal away from home in Europe and then conceding another, a couple of minutes later, and suddenly you're just out the game. Like, I think on Tuesday, like, we obviously started really poorly. Dortmund cut us open, like, I think 3 or 4 times in the first 10 minutes, and we didn't learn our lesson after any of those. But if you go behind early on, fair enough, we score. So we did well. We scored right from conceding the opening goal. Great. But then you concede again. But from that point, I think we have to get to a stage where you keep the game tight and you find a way to get through that period. Because then you'll have your opportunities in the game. I don't care who you're playing. You'll get a spell. Like, we're good enough to get a spell in the game. The issue we have is that when we have our little spell and our chances, we're already like 4 or 5 goals behind, and it doesn't matter at all. So, yeah, it's sticking in. I think the tactics is obviously what everyone's talking about. And yeah, I don't disagree with what people are saying. Like, we were far too gung ho with the pressing. I don't know if you guys have watched the first 10-15 minutes back, but some of the plays, the way we were pressing them, at times we had 6 players, our front 3 and our 3 midfielders, all in the final quarter, basically pressing their defence. And like, the thing is, like, if that was us and a team was pressing us like that, I reckon we would try and play out of it and not and end up giving it away. Dortmund just put it long. Like, see the centre back Schlotterbeck or whoever, if he was been pressed like that and he had all these players and no options, he just put it long, and they didn't even have to win the flick on, which they could do with Guirassy. But even if he didn't win the ball, second ball, and suddenly they had runners, and we had 6 players behind the ball, and that happened time after time in the game, and we got away with a number of them. I actually disagreed with Brendan Rodgers a wee bit when he said that Dortmund scored with every attack. I actually thought they could have scored more goals, Dortmund, based on what they created. So I didn't agree with that assessment from the manager. I just think going forward, I just hope that he's not an idiot. Like, he's a really good manager. People can argue how good he is, and I know there's a bit of a debate in the comments and all of that, but like, he is a good manager. He's managed good clubs. He's a competent manager. Surely he's looking at that and at Tuesday and going forward to Atalanta, there's going to be some sort of alteration. We can't get 6 players running after the ball like school kids in the first 5 minutes. Keep it tight early on. I'm not talking about Neil Lennon tactics against Barcelona, where no one's talking about that. But let's just be sensible and let them have the ball where they're not hurting us. Because I'd much rather they had the ball with their back 4, Ryan, comfortably, than Brandt or Adeyemi running up our back line.
Yeah, Brandt was the mastermind behind everything in that game, to be honest. It was absolutely tremendous. I know, absolutely, because he wasn't getting marked. Nobody was getting tight to him. That had to be one of the tactics before the game, to keep somebody on him at all times, because if you don't, then he dictates the game. He's got over 40 caps for Germany. He's a good player. He's a very, very competent player who I'm surprised hasn't made the leap from German football to maybe English football, because he's that good. He's that talented. I think he's quite underrated in world football. But I just feel like Celtic supporters would be more receptive of playing that sort of pragmatic style in Europe if they knew that results were going to come in Europe. You look at I don't think we expect Celtic to be gung-ho and really go up against these top teams. I want Celtic to play within their means in the way of getting a result. Yes, it's good that they can go toe-to-toe, but it's not great when you go toe-to-toe and then you get beat 7-1. It's not good for anybody. It's not good for squad morale. It's not good for the manager. It's not good for the supporters. It's not good for the club in general. So they've got to work within their means and play a brand of football that's attacking. It is attacking, but it can soak up pressure as well. On Tuesday, it was neither of those things. And as much as I was talking about, potentially playing the way that they did in pre-season, and I know it's different because these teams were still prepping for the new season. You can't do that against Manchester City and Chelsea now. Both of them are in good form at the moment. You would struggle. But if you can play a brand of that where you can soak up pressure and then hit on the counter-attack rather than committing so many players forward and then they're out of position, all of a sudden you get a 6-on-3. and it's not even just a 6. They've got better players, so those 6 players are better than the 3 players that are defending. It's not as if you can deal with that. So they just need to be more pragmatic in Europe, and I hope that Brendan Rodgers, I know he said he isn't going to change in Europe, but I just hope he has more leeway and more room to manoeuvre, more wiggle room than Ange Postecoglou did, because if he doesn't, then I think results like that will happen again, and they don't get any easier, because despite Leipzig having 0 points in the Champions League, a lot of people would say they're a better team than Borussia Dortmund, pound for pound. So it's an interesting one. And Atalanta, they speak for themselves away from home, and they're the Europa League champions. So they're going to have to be more pragmatic. Something's got to change if they want to get results against these bigger teams. But like I would say with other teams that come up against Celtic, maybe domestically, it's not really where our European campaign, or it's not mostly where our European campaign is going to be judged. Ours is going to be judged against Young Boys, Dinamo Zagreb, maybe Leipzig at home. Maybe depends when they play Club Brugge, and then depending on the way the table is, Aston Villa away. But even then, if they play their subs, they play John Duran, who scored that screamer last night. So
Duran and we'd struggle, right? That's very good on it, guys.
I knew that was coming. Something was coming in that regard. I knew that.
Right. Okay. Silence. Okay. Charlie's talking about Lennon's tactic. Charlie, I did not mean that in disrespect to Neil Lennon at all. One of my favourite games ever, and Neil Lennon got it bang on that night. I'm just making the point that was clearly a very defensive approach that night. It worked, but personally, we're not going to see that from Brendan Rodgers. And Plunge is just saying on that subject, he hasn't changed before. He's not going to change now. Will be more of the same. As always with these things, Joe, I feel like we all look at it as there's 2 approaches, and one is gung-ho like we saw on Tuesday, and the other one is every player defending our box. And the reality is that Brendan Rodgers want to carry an attacking threat in these games, and I want to see that as well. I don't want to see Celtic ever playing like Scotland in the Euros. I mean, Tuesday was bad, horrendous. For me, Celtic playing as defensively as Scotland, just as bad as we saw on Tuesday. Okay, you might not concede 7 goals, but I just found a team so defensively like Steve Clark Scotland. I found that totally humiliating, to be honest, watching it and supporting a team that played like that. Anyway, point I'm making is there's different ways you can play, so you can still cause an attacking threat, but make little alterations, and that's what I'm calling out for. And surely he's going to do that for Atalanta.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of people have made the comparison with the Barcelona game and Neil Lennon's pragmatism in Europe. Even the Europa League campaign in 2019, beating Lazio home and away, getting those late goals and capitalising on being able to break. I don't think that there will be Celtic fans calling for parking the bus and trying to be the kind of negative football style of things. I think most Celtic fans, and I can only speak for myself, but just in terms of what you see on social media and anyone I've spoken to, is not necessarily parking the bus, but just being difficult to break down. Just changing, as you say, setting up slightly differently so that we're not playing. I think you mentioned this on yesterday's pod, Hamish, those 2 chances that Dortmund that we got away with in the early stages, where it's 6-on-3 on the break, and we wouldn't put ourselves in that position domestically, I don't think. I'm at a loss to think why that was happening in those opening stages against such a good team as Dortmund. One comment I saw, I was going through the Dortmund subreddit and just kind of trying to get a sense of what Dortmund fans were thinking about in the immediate aftermath, and someone made a kind of off-the-cuff comment saying, can we play like this every game? A Dortmund fan talking about Dortmund. And someone said, no other team would play like the way Celtic did against Dortmund, apart from Bayern Munich. And Bayern Munich have got the skill to back it up. So that kind of gives you a sense of, it's a reversal, isn't it? Almost that's how Celtic normally line up against kind of teams domestically. And even the Dortmund fan was surprised that Celtic played so openly, and a natural outcome of that is 7-1. When it comes to this, being confident and attacking the game, and you don't want to see Celtic compromising on the football that kind of runs through the DNA, it's fair enough. But I am, like most Celtic fans, I think, fed up with these results. I would rather lose 2-0 and play in a different style, to be honest, than lose 7. But you're right, we won't be judged on this game alone. And interestingly, I think Man City are the one team in the top 8, I think, of the group now. Is that right? After this match day 2 run of results with 4 points. Obviously, Celtic have got 3. I could be wrong there. I might have looked at it before all the results had come in last night.
I think you might be right.
It just shows you that okay. I sound like I'm contradicting myself now because I'm saying I'd rather lose 2 than 7. But ultimately, it was never going to come down to goal difference for Celtic. So, yeah, it's fine margins with the points. And in goal difference terms, that 5-1 as well. It's seen Celtic kind of feature further up the table than they would. It's just a sore one, and it's the sense of deja vu and the familiarity. And also Brendan Rodgers coming back from Leicester and saying, he'd learned to set his team up differently, to play against the Man Cities and things like that. Exactly. So to hear all these things, again, go back to my point about, we had to show a different side of our game. We as fans and the team and the manager are happy to soak up all the credit in those moments. They will take it on the chin here. I would just like to see a little bit more of that pragmatism on the big stage that avoids results like Tuesday night. And I think that's reasonable. I think the majority of Celtic fans are feeling similarly.
I think the players have a duty as well, though. I think to an extent they were set up to fail, to an extent with the tactics. But also there's that, I don't know the word, but, a professionalism, I guess, as a player to go out and to win your tackles. Like, did we put in 1 tackle in that entire match? Because I can't remember it.
I can remember 1 from Johnson, but that's it, really. But then Johnson was culpable for a lot of mistakes on the night as well. It remains to be seen how his injury update is, because he was taken off late on in place of Anthony Ralston, and I don't think that he was called up for Canada for their friendly against Panama. Good. So that could be quite interesting. Cameron Carter-Vickers, I don't think, was called up for the USA either. So I think the international break might be coming at the right time for Celtic to just get all their players in, get that win against Ross County, and regroup and get ready for what's to come, because it's going to be a busy period heading up to Christmas and through the festive fixtures and games like that. So yeah, it's just been a sobering result, but I don't want it to take away from the fact that apart from this result, you include the Slovan Bratislava result, which was a great victory. I know they had to beat Bratislava at home, but they still did. They beat them convincingly 5-1. It's been a great start domestically as well. And as much as it's one bad result, they're not out of the Champions League by a long shot. And it's not as if they have to go and play Dortmund at home. Again, that's the beauty of this league phase. They're playing different teams. They play 8 different teams in this format. So they don't need to worry about coming up against Adeyemi or Julian Brandt. Again, they played against different teams. Yes, they're coming up against Atalanta, the Europa League champions, who, by all accounts, look like world beaters at the moment. But it's a different opponent, and things can happen on the night. It's just a really disappointing result. And I hate that it's become, the sort of narrative now, and it seems all negative, because for the vast majority between the start of the season and now, everything's been positive, and now it just seems as if it's a complete negative cloud over the season, when realistically it's only one game.
Yeah, it is, but I think it sums up how we all feel as fans. And this season, like no other I can remember, everyone is focused on Europe, and obviously we all know the league, and we know we want to win that. That goes without saying. I don't need to say that in the Scottish Cup and the League Cup. But I feel like everyone's kind of judging this season in a way on Europe. Like, I feel like, okay, if we win the treble, it would still be an amazing season. Win the double, it's still a really, really good season. But I feel like the European stuff, if we make the 24 and win the double or win the treble, it turns into like an unbelievable season. So that's the effect Europe can have this season, because I think we all realise Scottish football isn't up to much. No other team, maybe with the exception of Aberdeen, are up to much this season. So we measure ourselves like domestic European level. Ross County Sunday, Joe, get me up for it. Come on.
I was going to try and do that.
Not the start we wanted.
So off camera earlier on, Ryan and I were catching up, and Arne Engels had kind of echoed the sentiments of Callum McGregor after the game. He was speaking to German media and was just saying that he saw Tuesday night, as disappointing as it was, as a bad day at the office. And that's kind of capturing the sentiment. And I know that Ryan is working on something for the Celtic Way, a feature-wise, just kind of digging into the game-by-game mantra, which we've heard to death by players and managers, and it's normally through a positive prism. This one coming off the kind of back of a negative, it needs to be enforced in something that Celtic commit to. I mean, I'm completely the same as yourself, Hamish, in that, yeah, you always want domestic success and dominance, but from what we've seen so far this season, unless something dramatically falls off from here on, I think Celtic are certainly portraying the character and the skill and the quality that will kind of take care of domestic football this year. The fact that Brendan Rodgers has put such a focus on Europe, wanting to make inroads, speaking publicly about it in press conferences, really focusing the attention on it, talking about a team that's learned, they've had last year, and a lot of players had Ange Postecoglou the year before, and what they've been able to bring to the Champions League this year, and we didn't see it on Tuesday. We didn't really see anything learned, which is the real disappointing thing. But it is only one result. I don't know personally if I'm quite there yet. I'm not as far ahead as Ryan. Maybe I should have taken on the ratings and we could have half them down the middle, and that would have made me feel a bit better. But the only way
who's doing the defence and who's doing the attack, it's as bad as each other there. If you're half in that.
But yeah, it needs to be dust ourselves down and get back on. And Ross County, difficult team to play and difficult fixture altogether. So yeah, got to put it behind them. I suppose it's good that it's a Tuesday game. There's been a long tail, and yeah, they can refocus. And as Ryan says, after that, it's the international break and can regroup and push forward into the next one. It's only 3 weeks away, I think, Atalanta.
Yeah. We need to win on Sunday, Ryan, don't we? I mean, you really don't want to. Sorry, I'm seeing Robert's talking about 60-0 on Sunday. Okay, Robert. See how we get on. No pressure.
Started playing now.
we need to win the game, because if we don't win the game, people's frustrations are going to worsen, aren't they, going into the break?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a blip can't become a skid, basically, is what I'm trying to say. As bad as the Dortmund result was, it has no effect on the domestic matters, which is great because Celtic are doing brilliantly. They've not even conceded a goal domestically in the Scottish Premiership. So I would want that run to continue at the weekend. I think it's a really good opportunity for Celtic to get back on track, because they've been in such good form recently. And they're coming up against a team that have been struggling this season in Ross County under Don Cowie, who's just getting used to becoming a full-time manager. I think it's a real opportunity for Celtic to put in a great performance, and they did put in a great performance the last time they were at Dingwall. Remember, Lewis Palmer in particular scored an absolute screamer that strangely didn't get nominated for goal of the season. It was an incredible goal. It was one of the first away games I covered for the Celtic Way, and it was one of those goals that you had to be there to experience how good it was. It looks great on the telly, but the dip that went up and down. But I think that was right before the Atletico Madrid away game, because they played on the Saturday, and then I think they went to Madrid soon after. And so it's the reverse of that. They got a hammering against They got a hammering against Atletico Madrid after that game, but they've got this game, after that Dortmund game. So it's a great opportunity for them to really get back on track and be the best version of themselves. Really,
he's kind of relatively confident that we'll turn up. It doesn't feel to me. I could be wrong. It doesn't feel like the team will be affected by that going forward. They seem like quite a resolute bunch. Maybe in Europe they might be, and when we go into Atalanta they might be second guessing themselves, but I just feel like we'll go out and probably win relatively convincingly on Sunday.
Yeah, I think Brendan Rodgers is good at maintaining that calm, isn't he? I know that he speaks about it a lot. The 7-1 against Paris Saint-Germain back in 2017, went on and won the League Cup that following Sunday against Motherwell, part of the double treble.
Okay.
So
good knowledge. You got the other games, Barca 7-0. What was it? The next game?
The game before was the 5-1 Rangers.
I think it was Inverness after Barca, and I think we drew that.
Yeah.
Drew that game. I remember that game.
Well, we're not going to talk about that one. We want to talk about winning the League Cup, because I'm in control of this answer. yeah. I think that using the League Cup example, I realise that I'm speaking to a positive result, but just that Brendan Rodgers can help them put these things aside. All the players seem to say that whenever they're speaking about the man management, and it's something that he really prides himself in. I do think there could be a little bit of unease if anything unfolds besides a win. It's tough to take that kind of defeat, but at this end, looking forward, I'm confident that Celtic will go and do the business. I suppose it's just a come down, isn't it? The European stage, all the build up that went into heading over to Dortmund. Again, I don't believe the confidence was misplaced. I didn't think that Celtic were going to go there and win. I thought that they could snatch a draw. Maybe that's kind of deluding myself, but I did think that the performances and the confidence and the unity between the fans and the players and the manager was all there right for Celtic going there and getting something. They didn't, and the nature of the defeat makes it tough. But to see that and think that is the gap so big between Scottish football and European football at that level, and not having the kind of safety blanket of the Europa League this year. So you always want to win the league. You're always going to end up in the Champions League as per the coefficient at the moment. It's tough to square. It is tough to square, but nevertheless, a win is imperative at the weekend, and it just needs to be. Celtic need to go there and attack the game and recapture that form that they've had up until Tuesday.
And I think I want to see a few changes on Sunday. I want to see Adam Idah come in and start. By the way, side note, I don't know how he didn't score on Tuesday night. I've not heard anyone speaking. That just summed up the night. What a miss.
0.66 on XG for that chance. He managed to defend his own header, which was quite strange. He managed to header it away from the goal. It was a really wild challenge. It's one of those chances, and I was talking about that to somebody else yesterday, saying if that's Guirassy, he's on a hat trick there. He's taking that chance. Side note, that is how you play as a striker in the Champions League. I know he's 28 and he's a bit of a late bloomer, but my goodness, what a performance!
That goal he scored, brilliant.
One with the sent scales one way and then the other. It was just, he's been doing that in the Bundesliga for the past 2-3 years now. That's just the difference. And they only got him for 18 million as well, which is incredible bit of business. I do. On the Adam Idah point, I do agree. I want to see him start the game. I'd want him to start that game against Ross County, and I think that Rodgers will take this opportunity to start him because he did the same with O. He started against Ross County the last time that they went there.
I'm pretty sure he will start. I agree. I'm 90% sure. I think Valle, argument for him to start. I thought he looked decent when he came on. I would possibly start Luke McCowan. I think I'd put Luke McCowan in. I want to see more of him. It feels to me like a Luke McCowan game, kind of tight pitch, need a good first touch. Luke McCowan would be in my team. I'm now running out of room because I think Hatate would be in my team, but I wouldn't drop Engels. So it's a bit of a difficult one for the manager to weigh up. But certainly Valle, Idah, and either McCowan or Hatate in that team. And yeah, we can maybe get some other players off the bench.
Probably be Ralston as well, or maybe Nawrowski or Welsh. It's one of those ones that's it's an interesting one because it always seems to be with Celtic. They go through. They seem to get more injuries after these European games. I don't know if it's due to pushing themselves that bit more, and then off the back of them, you get players picking up muscle injuries all of a sudden. But you've got you get Johnson that looks to be injured. You get Carter Vickers that's out already. Greg Taylor that was taken off at halftime. That's three of your four starting defenders that are out of the game or potentially out of the game against Ross County. That's a big blow, and we've seen what happened the last time against Falkirk when you change a lot of members of your back line. So you're hoping it's not the same, and they've gelled just that little bit more with each other. But it is a worry, and international break comes at the right time, I would say.
Tough game, isn't it? County, I'm looking now, County I think are 7th in the league when I checked earlier, 7 points, only lost 2 of 4 games so far, unbeaten in 3. I think they should have beaten Hearts last week. Last minute goal, wasn't it? And they should have beaten St Johnstone last minute goal. So they could effectively, had they held on in those games, be sitting 4th. So I think they're going to be a tough game. One we need to win. Right, okay guys, thank you for your time once again. We'll catch up with you both very soon. Thanks everyone for tuning in, commenting, etc. Please feel free to subscribe. If you want to do that, it would be much appreciated. You can become a YouTube member as well. Just waiting on the writing going along. $2.99 per month and receive early video access, priority comments.
Priority comments and exclusive members chat function. I say it off, but it's in my head. It's ingrained in my head now. It's my script that I've got in my head. I just put it up at the banner on the side as well there. But if you want to support us just that little bit more, press that join button on the YouTube members if you're on desktop. And yeah, join us, and thank you to everybody that's done so far.
Indeed. Right. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you tomorrow.